your host, Andrea Bazemore, and welcome to another episode of The Black Apple, where we talk about education and social justice in the classroom. Recently, DACA was eliminated, and I know the elimination of this law is going to affect a lot of teachers. A lot of teachers have students and families who are worried, and some students may not understand what exactly DACA is and how it is affecting their lives. So I'm going to tell you what I did in my classroom to talk about DACA to my kindergartners, in hopes that you have some ideas for how to talk about this difficult subject with your classroom. So I set up a scenario, and I said to my kindergarten class, imagine if you paid for a certificate, and that certificate allowed you to go to college, get a job, and make a living. Now, I use the term certificate as an analogy to DACA because we just gave out award certificates for students with high achievement. So they understood that concept of working hard, really wanting something, and getting that thing that you really want. So I used context that they could understand. And then I said the reason you bought that certificate was because you were late to get the free certificate. Your parents moved after you were born, and so instead of getting a certificate for free, you had to pay for it. And you had to pay a lot of money. Now, I also set up this scenario because I wanted to contrast students getting a birth certificate versus those who got DACA authorization. Because the reality is that those who did go through DACA had to pay a good amount of money to get those papers and to get that work authorization. So I still want to put it into parallels and put it into context that my kindergartners can understand. So I continued the scenario and I said, your parents moved and wanted you to have a certificate so that you could have a better life and better opportunities. And so I said, now imagine one person took away your right to have that certificate. All that hard work, all that money was now at stake, and all those benefits of that certificate would be gone. And I said, now you're worried about college, and now you're worried you may not get that job, and you may not be able to work and provide for your family. And I told them about DACA. I introduced them to the language. And introducing them to this document that will affect 50% of my classroom's lives gave them power and knowledge to understand the world around them and what was happening. And talking about DACA also allowed me to talk about protests. I got to show my students pictures of actual protesters protesting the elimination of DACA, which led to a further discussion about petitions and activists and people trying to make that law work so that there was more equal opportunity. My kindergartners got a holistic and better understanding of what social justice means. They were able to connect their signature, their first and last name, which is a skill that we are still working on for a good portion of my students, especially those who are not native English speakers. They connected their signature to a petition and what that signature and how knowing their first and last name could elevate their position as a citizen. And it was really beautiful to see how involving students, even at a young age, into the world in which we live in, using that into a curriculum or into a subject matter, could completely transform a student's life. And I see it happening at the start of their educational career. But I don't just want to have students who know about social justice, know about the issues. I also want to build empathy. Because yes, 50% of my students will probably be affected by DACA, but 50% also probably will not be affected. So I need to build empathy for those students who DACA probably won't affect. So I asked the question. I put up a writing prompt, and I said, How would you feel if this happened to you? How would you feel if all of that hard work was taken away from you? And so students were able to put themselves in that perspective, in that shoe, and write about how they would feel or draw about how they would feel. And so not only building students who are conscious, but they are conscious with a heart, and they are conscious with a purpose, and they can understand the worldview around them. Because school is not just teaching subjects. School is about the knowledge that you possess and using that knowledge to advance the world around you and to critically think about issues that are around you. I love teaching current issues, and I think it can be done in any subject matter, and I think it can be done at any grade level. Expose your kids to the world around you. Expose your kids to things that are happening that will directly affect their lives. Education is more than just a set curriculum. It is about using the world around you and not just teaching to a standard, but teaching for impact. Thanks. And remember, education is power, but knowledge is sweet.